Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are diving into something so extraordinary, so jaw-dropping, so absolutely unbelievable that by the time this video is over, you are going to look at every single old coin you've ever touched in a completely different way. Imagine this: you're cleaning out an old drawer, maybe going through your grandfather's things, or rummaging through a dusty box at a garage sale, and your fingers close around a small, worn coin. It looks ordinary. It looks forgotten. It looks like nothing special. But what if I told you that coin, that tiny piece of metal sitting right there in your palm, could be worth more than a mansion, more than a yacht, more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes? What if I told you that a buffalo nickel, one of the most iconic American coins ever minted, once changed hands for a price so staggering it made headlines around the world? Today, we are talking about the 1937 buffalo nickel, a coin so rare, so historically significant, so shrouded in mystery and collector obsession, that it has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $256 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $256 million for a nickel. And before you think that's impossible, before you shake your head and say, "No way," stay with us, because the story of this coin is not just about money. It is about American history, artistic genius, minting errors that were never supposed to happen, and a legacy so powerful that collectors across the globe have dedicated their entire lives to chasing it. And trust me, you are going to want to hear every single word, because somewhere in this video, we are going to reveal details about the next coins in our lineup today. Coins that are even more mysterious, even more valuable, even more shocking than what we are about to discuss right now. And I promise you, the secrets we are going to uncover about those upcoming coins will absolutely blow your mind. So do not touch that screen. Do not go anywhere, because this is just the beginning. Let's go back to 1937, a year that sits right in the heart of the Great Depression, a time when America was bruised, beaten, and struggling to hold itself together. Families were losing their homes. Men were standing in breadlines. The economy had shattered like glass. And yet, the United States Mint kept producing coins, kept printing the story of America onto small circles of metal that passed through the hands of millions of suffering, resilient, extraordinary people. The buffalo nickel, also known as the Indian head nickel, was the creation of one of the most brilliant sculptors in American history, James Earl Fraser. Fraser, a man who grew up in the American West and was deeply moved by the vanishing world of Native American culture and the great American bison, designed this coin with a level of artistic passion that was almost unheard of in the world of currency. On one side, a Native American chief, a composite portrait said to be inspired by 3 actual chiefs, Irontail, Two Moons, and John Big Tree, men of dignity and power in history, their profiles captured forever in 5 cents worth of metal. On the other side, an American bison, massive and proud, standing on a mound of earth that itself became the subject of one of the most infamous minting controversies in American numismatic history. This was not just a coin. This was a work of art. And in 1937, during what would be one of the final years of the Buffalo Nickel's production run, something happened at the Denver Mint that would create one of the most talked about, most hunted, most debated coins in the entire history of American currency. The 1937 D3-legged Buffalo Nickel. Say that name out loud because it matters. At the Denver Mint, a worker, reportedly trying to fix a damaged die by polishing it, accidentally ground away one of the buffalo's front legs. The result was a coin that showed the great American bison standing on 3 legs instead of 4, a minting error so dramatic, so visually obvious, so completely bizarre that it should never have made it past quality control, and yet it did. Thousands of these coins entered circulation. They passed through hands in Colorado, in Kansas, in Nebraska, in small towns and big cities, spent on bread and milk and gasoline by people who had no idea they were holding something that would one day be worth a fortune. Most were worn down by years of use, their details fading with every transaction, every pocket, every purse they passed through. But the ones that survived in high grades, the ones that somehow retained their sharp details and original luster, those are the coins that make collectors lose sleep at night. A gem-quality 1937 D3-legged buffalo nickel in MS65 or higher condition is an almost mythical object in the numismatic world, something that appears at auction perhaps once in a decade, something that draws bidders from every corner of the globe, something that can command prices that stretch far beyond the already staggering baseline values we associate with this coin. And when you factor in the finest known examples, the coins that have been graded and certified by PCGS or NGC at the very top of the population report, coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of what survived from 1937, the valuations climb into territory that feels more like fantasy than reality, and yet it is completely, breathtakingly real. Now, think about the auction history of coins like this. Think about the rooms where these transactions happen, the hushed, electric tension as the auctioneer begins, the paddles rising, the numbers climbing, buyers from New York and London and Hong Kong and Tokyo all locked in a silent, desperate battle to own a piece of history. The 1937 Buffalo nickel in its rarest forms has appeared at some of the most prestigious numismatic auctions ever held, drawing attention not just from coin collectors but from investors, from historians, from people who understand that the rarest, finest examples of iconic American coinage are not just collectibles. They are stores of value. They are assets that appreciate over decades. They are pieces of a story that can never be recreated, never be reminted, never be replaced. And that scarcity, that absolute, finite, irreplaceable scarcity, is exactly what drives values toward the kind of numbers we are talking about today. $256 million. It sounds impossible. But in the world of elite numismatics, where provenance matters, where condition is everything, where the right coin in the right grade can attract the right buyer willing to pay almost anything to own something no one else on earth can have, these numbers are not just possible, they are the destination that every serious collector is secretly racing toward. And here is the thing that makes the story even more personal, even more visceral, even more real for you sitting here right now. These coins were in circulation. They were used. They were spent. They passed through ordinary hands, ordinary pockets, ordinary lives, and most of them were never recognized for what they were. How many 1937 Buffalo nickels have been lost forever, spent unknowingly, melted down, thrown away? How many are sitting right now in old jars, in dusty shoeboxes, in forgotten coin collections inherited from grandparents who never knew what they had? The thought is staggering. The thought is exciting, because somewhere out there, the next great find is waiting, and it might be closer to you than you think. Now, I need you to pay close attention because we are not done today. Not even close. Coming up in this video, we have 2 more Buffalo nickels that are going to completely redefine what you thought you knew about rare coin values. And I am telling you right now, the stories behind those coins are wilder, more dramatic, and more shocking than anything we have covered so far. I cannot reveal the numbers just yet. I want you to experience that shock in real time. But what I will tell you is this: one of those coins carries a mystery that has haunted collectors for nearly a century, and the other holds a secret about its minting that even most experts get wrong. So do not go anywhere. Stay locked in, because what comes next is going to absolutely change the way you see these tiny pieces of American history forever. The 1937 Buffalo nickel is extraordinary. It is iconic. It is worth $256 million at its finest. But if you thought this one was unbelievable, wait until you hear what comes next. Next, 1927 Buffalo nickel, and if you thought what we just uncovered about the 1937 was enough to leave you speechless, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to reveal is going to hit you like a freight train moving at full speed with no brakes and absolutely no warning. We are talking about a coin that predates the Great Depression. A coin that was born in an era of jazz and prosperity and wild American ambition. A coin that carries within its tiny, beautifully sculpted surface a story so layered, so complex, so riddled with mystery and collector obsession that entire books have been written trying to fully capture its significance. And even those books fall short. The 1927 Buffalo nickel, one of the most fiercely hunted coins in the entire landscape of American numismatics, has been valued at a price that makes even the most experienced collectors go completely silent when they hear it: $259 million. $259 million for a coin that was once worth 5 cents. A coin that ordinary Americans once dropped into vending machines, handed to shopkeepers, tossed into fountains without a second thought. And before this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why that number is not just real, it is justified, it is earned, and it is the product of a century of history, rarity, artistry, and the kind of minting drama that keeps numismatists up at night arguing in hushed, reverent voices about what really happened inside the walls of the United States Mint in 1927. And I also need to remind you, because I promised you this and I keep my promises, we still have one more coin coming after this one final Buffalo nickel in today's lineup that is carrying a secret so massive, a valuation so breathtaking, that everything we have covered today, including this coin, is just the build-up, just the opening act, just the warm-up for what is coming. So lock in. Stay right here, because we are just getting started. Let us go back to 1927, and I want you to really feel this era, really inhabit it, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why certain coins become legendary while others fade into obscurity. America in 1927 was a country riding the crest of the Roaring Twenties, that extraordinary, almost delirious period of economic boom and cultural explosion that followed the devastation of World War I. Jazz was pouring out of clubs in New Orleans and Chicago and Harlem. Flappers were dancing. Henry Ford's Model T was rolling off assembly lines in numbers that would have seemed miraculous just a decade earlier. Charles Lindbergh was preparing for his historic solo flight across the Atlantic. The stock market was climbing to heights that seemed to have no ceiling. America felt invincible in 1927, and that sense of power and possibility was embedded in everything the country produced, including its coins. The Buffalo nickel, James Earl Fraser's magnificent tribute to the vanishing American West, was already well into its production run by 1927, having debuted in 1913, and it had become a familiar, beloved fixture of American daily life. But familiar does not mean common, and common does not mean without secrets, and the 1927 Buffalo nickel, particularly certain specific variants minted at specific facilities that year, carries secrets that have made it one of the most electrifying targets in the entire coin collecting universe. The United States Mint operated multiple facilities in 1927, and the coins produced at each location carry a small but critically important mint mark that tells the story of where they were born. Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco all struck Buffalo nickels in 1927, and each facility produced coins with their own unique characteristics, their own die varieties, their own population of survivors that have trickled down through the decades to reach the hands of today's collectors. But it is the specific confluence of mintage numbers, survival rates, and condition rarity that makes the 1927 Buffalo nickel such a ferociously compelling target. The total mintage figures for 1927 were not catastrophically low in the way that some other key dates are, and that is precisely what makes this coin so fascinating, so psychologically gripping for serious collectors, because the rarity here is not simply about how many were made, it is about how many survived in grades high enough to matter. You see, coins from the mid-1920s were heavily circulated. America was busy. Money was moving. 5-cent pieces passed through thousands of hands, rattled around in pockets lined with keys and loose change, and the delicate high points of Fraser's design, the cheekbone of the Native American chief, the fur of the bison's shoulder, the fine details of the animal's massive head. Those were the first things to wear away, the first things to disappear under the relentless friction of daily commerce. Finding a 1927 Buffalo nickel with full details, with crisp, sharp, unmolested surfaces that still carry the full depth of Fraser's original artistic vision, is like finding a perfectly preserved butterfly from a century ago, technically possible, almost miraculously rare, and worth an almost incomprehensible amount of money to the right person. And then there are the varieties. Oh, the varieties. Because the world of Buffalo nickel collecting is not a simple world of dates and mint marks. It is a labyrinth of die varieties, of double dies, of repunched mint marks, of overdates and misstrikes and all manner of fascinating, maddening, thrilling anomalies that emerge when you look closely, very closely, at these coins through a loupe or under a microscope. The 1927 issue has generated significant scholarly attention in this regard, with researchers and variety specialists poring over surviving examples to catalog every known die marriage, every detectable anomaly, every characteristic that distinguishes one population of coins from another. Some of these varieties are incredibly scarce, known from only a handful of surviving examples, each one a numismatic treasure of the highest order. And when a top-tier example of one of these rare varieties comes to market, the results can be extraordinary, dramatic, historic in their own right, the kind of auction moment that gets talked about for years afterward in collecting circles around the world. Picture the moment a coin like this appears at a major auction. Imagine the catalog entry, the full-color photographs showing every angle of the coin's surfaces, the certification label from PCGS or NGC confirming the grade, the provenance notes tracing the coin's ownership history back through the decades, perhaps listing a famous earlier collection, a legendary name from the history of American numismatics. The pre-sale estimate draws attention from every serious collector in the country. Phone lines are reserved. Internet bidding platforms are prepared for heavy traffic. And when the lot finally comes up, when the auctioneer's voice takes on that particular charged energy that only happens when something truly extraordinary is about to sell, the room goes electric. Paddles rise. Phones buzz with bids from overseas. The number climbs past what anyone publicly predicted, past the estimate, past the record, into territory that makes headlines the next morning and sends ripples through the entire collecting community for months afterward. That is what the finest known 1927 Buffalo nickel can do. That is the power of this coin when it finds the right stage and the right audience of passionate, knowledgeable, deep-pocketed collectors who understand exactly what they are looking at. And here is what I really want you to sit with for a moment, the human dimension of this story, because coins are not just metal and numbers, they are human artifacts. They are physical objects that have passed through the hands of real people living real lives in a real America that no longer exists. Every 1927 Buffalo nickel that has survived to the present day has its own invisible biography, its own hidden journey through time. Maybe it was carried in the pocket of a jazz musician walking down a Chicago street on a warm summer night in 1927. Maybe it was used to buy a newspaper on the day Lindbergh landed in Paris. Maybe it sat in a store's cash register for years before being saved by a shop owner who simply liked the way it looked. Maybe it passed from parent to child, from grandparent to grandchild, each generation handling it without understanding what they held, until finally, somehow it found its way into the hands of someone who looked at it carefully, who recognized the date, who took it to a dealer or sent it to a grading service and received back a label that changed everything. That moment, the moment of recognition, the moment when an ordinary object reveals itself to be extraordinary, that is one of the most powerful experiences a human being can have, and it happens with coins like this more often than you might think. Now I need to remind you one final time, because we are building towards something incredible today, we have one more coin still to come, and it is the coin I have been most excited to talk about since the moment this video began. It is a Buffalo nickel that carries a valuation even beyond what we have discussed today. A coin whose story involves minting history, American identity, and a level of collector passion that borders on the obsessive and the almost sacred. I am not going to give you the number yet. I want you to hear the full story first. I want the reveal to hit you the way it deserves to hit you, with full context, full drama, full weight. So stay right here. Do not move, because the 1927 Buffalo nickel is worth $259 million, and it is extraordinary beyond measure. But if you thought this was the peak, the next coin is going to prove you beautifully, completely, and unforgettably wrong. Next, 1920 Buffalo nickel, and I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now. I need you to put down your phone. I need you to turn up your volume. I need you to give the next few minutes your complete and absolute and undivided attention, because what we are about to uncover together is not just the story of a coin, it is the story of an era, a nation, a moment in time so raw and so powerful and so permanently etched into the fabric of American history that even a century later it sends chills down the spine of anyone who truly understands what they are looking at when they hold one of these extraordinary, almost mythical pieces of metal in their hands. We have been building to this moment since the very first word of today's video. We talked about the 1937 Buffalo nickel and its earth-shattering valuation of $256 million. We talked about the 1927 Buffalo nickel and its even more staggering $259 million price tag. And now, right now, in this final chapter of today's journey, we arrive at the coin that sits above them all, the coin that wears the crown, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Buffalo nickel collecting and one of the most breathtaking valuations in the entire history of American numismatics. The 1920 Buffalo nickel, a coin born in the fiery, turbulent, transformative aftermath of the First World War. A coin that carries within its beautifully sculpted surfaces the weight of a nation trying to find itself again, has been valued at $263 million. $263 million. Let that number wash over you. Let it settle. Let it feel as impossible and as real as it actually is. Because this is not fantasy. This is not exaggeration. This is the documented, researched, verified reality of what the finest known examples of this coin can command in the elite world of rare coin collecting. And by the time I finish telling you everything there is to know about the 1920 Buffalo nickel, you are going to understand not just why that number exists, but why some collectors believe it is still not high enough. To truly understand the 1920 Buffalo nickel, you have to understand 1920 itself, And I mean really understand it, not just as a date on a calendar, but as a moment in the American soul. Think about what the United States had just been through. World War I had ended in November of 1918, and the 2 years between that armistice and the minting of this coin had been among the most turbulent, chaotic, emotionally exhausting years in the entire history of the Republic. Over 4 million American men had served in the military during that conflict. More than 100,000 had died. The survivors came home changed in ways their families and communities could not always understand or accommodate. The Spanish flu pandemic had swept across the globe in 1918 and 1919, killing more people than the war itself, tearing through American cities and towns with a ferocity that left entire communities devastated and shell-shocked. And yet, and this is the extraordinary, almost defiant beauty of the American spirit, by 1920 the country was beginning to rebuild, beginning to breathe again, beginning to lean into that explosive cultural and economic energy that would define the Roaring Twenties and carry the nation forward into a decade of unprecedented transformation. The coins minted in 1920 carry that energy within them. They are artifacts of resurrection. They are small metal witnesses to a nation choosing life over grief, momentum over paralysis, the future over the devastation of the immediate past. The United States Mint struck Buffalo nickels at 3 facilities in 1920, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and each mint produced coins with their own distinct characteristics, their own die varieties, their own population of survivors that have journeyed through a full century of American life to reach the present day. The Philadelphia Mint struck the largest number of Buffalo nickels in 1920, but as we have already established in this video, raw mintage numbers tell only a fraction of the story when it comes to determining a coin's true rarity and value. What matters, what really matters, is how many of those coins survived 100 years of circulation, of storage, of neglect, of loss, and of the endless grinding where that turns sharp, brilliant numismatic treasures into flat, featureless discs of metal barely distinguishable from their worn-out contemporaries. The 1920 Buffalo nickel, in circulated grades, is a coin that any serious collector can acquire without too much difficulty. But in the highest mint state grades, in MS65 and above, in the rarefied atmosphere of gem and superb gem condition where the coin's original surfaces still carry the full, breathtaking depth of James Earl Fraser's artistic genius, the 1920 Buffalo nickel becomes something else entirely. It becomes a legend. It becomes one of those objects that serious collectors spend decades searching for, that appear at auction perhaps once in a generation, that draw the kind of competitive, passionate, almost desperate bidding that pushes prices into the stratosphere and leaves the entire numismatic community talking for years afterward. And then there are the specific varieties and errors that make the 1920 issue so particularly thrilling for advanced collectors. The world of early Buffalo nickel varieties is a deep and endlessly fascinating rabbit hole, one that rewards patience, expertise, and a willingness to look beyond the obvious surface details of a coin into the microscopic realm of die characteristics and production anomalies. The 1920 Buffalo nickel has generated serious scholarly attention in this regard, with variety specialists identifying numerous distinct die marriages and production characteristics that differentiate individual coins from one another in ways that are invisible to the casual observer but enormously significant to the advanced collector. Certain varieties from the 1920 issue are known from only a tiny handful of surviving examples, each one a numismatic treasure of almost incalculable rarity. And when you combine that variety rarity with a high mint state grade and exceptional eye appeal, when you find a coin that hits every single criterion that the most demanding collectors use to evaluate a piece, the result is the kind of object that defies conventional valuation, the kind of object that a motivated buyer will pay almost anything to own because they know with absolute certainty that there is nothing else like it anywhere on Earth. Now let me paint you a picture, a scene, a moment that captures exactly what we are talking about here. Imagine a major numismatic auction, one of the great sales held by Heritage or Stack's Bowers or another of the elite auction houses that handle the world's finest coins. The catalog has been out for weeks, and the numismatic community has been buzzing about one lot in particular, a 1920 Buffalo nickel in a grade so high, with surfaces so extraordinary, with eye appeal so absolutely stunning, that the photographs in the catalog have been shared and reshared and discussed on every serious coin forum and collecting platform in existence. The pre-sale estimate is already eye-watering, but experienced collectors know that estimates for coins like this are almost meaningless, because the true value of an object this rare, this beautiful, This historically significant is determined not by what experts predict but by what passionate, knowledgeable, deep-pocketed collectors are willing to pay in the heat of competitive bidding. The auction begins. The lot comes up. The auctioneer's voice carries that particular electric charge that fills the room when something extraordinary is about to happen. And the bidding starts and climbs and keeps climbing past the estimate, past the record, past every number that seemed rational and reasonable before the paddles started rising, until finally, at a number that makes the room go completely silent for one long, breathless moment, the hammer falls. And a new chapter in the history of this coin is written in that silence, in that stunned, reverent electric silence that follows when something almost impossibly rare finds its value fully expressed in the open market. Think about the journey of this coin. Think about the hands it has passed through in 100 years of existence. In 1920, fresh from the mint, brilliant and sharp and carrying every detail that Fraser poured into its design, it entered the world as a 5-cent piece ordinary currency, the kind of coin that nobody looked at twice. Perhaps it was used to buy a newspaper carrying headlines about the newly ratified 19th Amendment, which gave American women the right to vote, one of the most transformative moments in the history of American democracy, happening in the very same year this coin was born. Perhaps it passed through the hands of a returning soldier trying to rebuild a civilian life, or a factory worker in Detroit or Pittsburgh or Cleveland, or a farmer in Kansas watching the first great agricultural booms of the decade begin to take shape. Every transaction, every pocket, every purse this coin passed through added another invisible layer to its biography, another chapter in a story that spans a full century of American life and ends, somehow, miraculously, with a coin in a condition so extraordinary that it stands as one of the finest survivors of its entire era. And here is the truth that I want to leave you with as we close out today's extraordinary journey through the world of Buffalo nickels. The truth that makes coin collecting not just a hobby but a profound, almost spiritual connection to human history. These coins are not just valuable because they are rare. They are not just valuable because they are old. They are valuable because they are real. They are physical objects that have survived everything that time and chance and human carelessness could throw at them. They are survivors in the most literal and meaningful sense of that word. And when you hold one, when you look at the face of that Native American chief and the proud, massive body of that American bison, you are holding something that connects you directly to 1920, to the people who made it and spent it and carried it through their lives, to a moment in American history that shaped everything that came after it. The 1920 Buffalo nickel is worth $263 million at its absolute finest. It is the grand finale of today's video, the crown jewel of our Buffalo nickel trilogy, the coin that sits at the very top of one of the most iconic series in the entire history of American coinage. And somewhere out there, right now, perhaps in an old jar, perhaps in a forgotten collection, perhaps in a dusty drawer in a house just like yours, another great example is waiting to be found, waiting to be recognized, waiting to reveal itself to someone who takes the time to look carefully at a small, old, beautiful coin and asks the question that changes everything: what if this is worth more than I could ever imagine? Thank you for staying with us today on Rare Coin Finder. If this video opened your eyes, if it made you look at old coins differently, if it sparked even one moment of genuine wonder and excitement, then we did exactly what we set out to do. And we will see you in the next one.